We've nearly made it. The international break is done. The weekend is round the corner, and hopefully there's even some optimism for Arsenal. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. Couple of things just before we kick off. Firstly, what are you doing? What's going on? I know it's the international break. I get that it's dull and boring and sad and lonely at times during this break, but that is no excuse to leave yesterday's show 20 likes away from hitting 1,000. No. Nah. We're not going to slack. Come on, guys. We're not going to slack away from this. So if you haven't dropped a like on yesterday's show and you're that one I'm talking to, sitting there in your chair, in your comfy little seat with your cup of coffee, thinking, I didn't like yesterday's video. I'm talking to you right now. Hop over to yesterday's show. Make sure you drop a like on the video. And of course, of morning to everyone joining us in the chat box as well. Thank you, as always, for doing so. It is incredibly appreciated. And I hope that you've had a fantastic week as well. There is some breaking news. I'm going to have to change this show on the fly, as so often happens, right? As so often happens with news and football. But we have some breaking news to discuss. We'll come on to that very, very shortly because it is humongous news that will mean I'll have to change not only the thumbnail, I'm going to have to change the stories, I'm going to have to change the title, I'm going to have to change the pictures. But we'll get onto that in a second because it is good news, very good news indeed. You can tell I'm typing while I am talking, which is a skill to change things and mess things about. But make sure you're dropping a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on. I'm sure that these things happen as soon as I start these shows, always. Good morning, Peekahoo, Franklin, Amira, Stephen, Arasilki, Dan, Christopher, Jonathan, Paul, Matt G, Edison, Process, Louis, Tom, Owen, Paul, Gooner76, Amesy, Edison, Ryan, Jitty, Brad, Rich, Maximius, Clincy, Adagoke, Steve, Stevie, Barry, Trevor, Colin, Tim, and plenty more of you guys and girls as well. Thank you to you all for tuning in. It is incredibly appreciated. I hope you've had a fantastic week, of course. Please do drop a like on today's video. But without further ado, let's get into today's stories. We start small and we'll finish big. So let's start with Arsenal announcing a 10 million plus partnership with Transformation Partnership NNT Data. This story was broken by the financial expert Lukasz Baszczek, who tweeted yesterday that Arsenal yesterday announced a 10 million pound partnership with NNT Data that will see the company become the club's official digital transformation partner. It's worth around £3 million per year, 4 seasons in duration until the end of the 27-28 campaign. The club sponsorship deal number 29. According to the sources of Lucas, another new partnership will join the sponsorship pyramid this month. What basically is this designed to do? It's to help, according to the Arsenal website, it's designed to kind of transform fan experiences, believe it or not. Some really interesting information on this. If you want to read it, you can read the article on it on the Arsenal website. They have announced it over there. So some interesting stuff. I'm sure we'll learn more in the days to come as well. NTT. Yes, NTT. That's what I wrote. Not NNT. NTT. Oh, I wrote it on the wrong thing. That's just I've been crazy this morning. NTT. Thank you, guys. Moving forwards. Inconclusive scans surrounding Martin Odegaard has suggested that the swellingness kind of blocked conclusive answers for Martin Odegaard's ankle issue. Sammy Mokbel of the Mail reporting, however, it is hoped that despite that, and with more scans to happen today, perhaps later on this week, depending upon the swelling, that it is not too bad. And that hopefully we won't be missing Martin Odegaard for too long. Estimations from the Norwegian doctor suggested 3 weeks that we'd be missing him for at least, which would mean he would miss September, which means in terms of games, away to Spurs, away to Atalanta, away to Man City, and then the 2 home games in the League Cup against Bolton and the Premier League against Leicester is what we would see him miss. Interestingly, we've seen some fallout from this. Christopher Baumgartner, the Austrian midfielder, who of course was involved in the challenge that saw him injured, which to be honest, I thought it was really innocuous, the injury. I wouldn't have blamed the player at all for his involvement. He says, "Hi guys, I would like to sincerely apologise to Martin Odegaard. It was never my intention to injure this fantastic player. I wish him all the best and a speedy recovery, come back stronger." There was nothing malicious about that challenge. It wasn't one. It was just one of those where it happens in football. Two players going for a ball. I'm not blaming the guy, but I know that he probably has received some horrible messages from Arsenal fans because sadly that's what some Arsenal fans do. Speaking of which, Joel Veltman came out and spoke regarding Declan Rice and the incident with Declan Rice. He says, "I didn't want to kick him as he kicked the ball away. I kicked him. If you look back at my reaction, I wasn't asking the referee for a second yellow. I was just asking why he kicked it, and I apologised for kicking him." He said, "I don't need to kick it. I should know better." Speaking of what Rice said, that's an amazing comment, and it shows his great personality as well. It was very clear from listening, and you can watch the whole interview on Sky Sports, is that there had definitely been, and I know for a fact that there have been some horrible comments sent the way of Joel Veltman and his family, because I've personally seen some of them and been made aware of them. And it is horrendous, some of the messages that have gone through. And so you may remember we did a show last week where we did discussions about the reports coming out that messages had been sent to Joel Veltman and his family, and that there were a lot of people questioning whether that was real. I can tell you for a fact that they are real, and they are disgusting. So if you're one of those people that are listening to this knowing that you sent a message the way of Joel Veltman or his family, be better, because you're not being very good right now. But the big news of today that we need to discuss broke literally as I pressed the live button. And that is that Mikel Arteta, according to the one, the only Mr. David Ornstein, has agreed a new 3-year contract as Arsenal manager. Arteta, of course, into his final 12 months of his previous deal, but any uncertainty has now been removed. Fresh terms on a contract through until 2027. This is brilliant, brilliant news for Arsenal. This is brilliant, brilliant news for the club. This is brilliant, brilliant news for our short-term to potentially long-term future. Hopefully an announcement will come on Arteta signing his new deal will be soon. And that we'll see, of course, him signing that brand new contract in some big interviews and stuff. It may be today, it may be tomorrow. We're going to have to wait and see. But it does mean, of course, that I'm going to have to change the thumbnail as I'm trying to talk to you guys, which is going to be greatly fun and probably a bit of a challenge. But as I'm doing that, just to kind of give you my thoughts around this, because I know that there is ultimately going to be people that aren't particularly happy about this. And I know that there are going to be people that are very frustrated and feel that, without having won a trophy since 2020 with the FA Cup, I know that there are going to be people out there that aren't particularly happy that Mikel Arteta is signing a new deal, but it is absolutely a deserved contract. When you're in the final 12 months of your deal, having taken Arsenal to successive title challenges, it was always going to be that Arteta was going to sign a brand new contract. He's earned that next deal. The next deal has been agreed and has been guaranteed for a long, long time, because you don't take Arsenal from a team that have been, let's be honest, in a purgatorial period for so many years, not competing for the biggest of honours, not looking at potentially getting close to a Premier League title. And in just 5 years after joining when we were 11th in the table, you don't take a club from that to here in 5 years without recognition of what that achievement is. Arsenal have never been in a better position in the last near decade to potentially win a title. Near 2 decades to win another title after their last one in 2004. And we are very close to that. And I am very looking forward to hopefully seeing Arteta, of course, lift a Premier League title, lift a Champions League title. And I believe that we have a manager right now that can do that. But this new deal, as I have always said to you and have always been consistent about, this new deal comes with a big proviso. And that is for me that in the next 3 years, and I assumed it always would be 3 years that he would, of course, sign a new deal for, he has to bring that title home. Arteta has to win a Premier League title, because if he doesn't win a Premier League title, and if he doesn't win or potentially a Champions League in those next 3 years, unless we pick up a number of domestic cups during that time, that's the only thing that I can think of that would maybe in some ways suffice for some people. But for me, you have to be picking up the Premier League in this new deal. This new deal has to come with that. We believe in you. That's why we're giving you this new deal on improved terms. But we have to absolutely lift that title. And if we don't, what we've learned is that we've learned that this is as far as Mikel Arteta can take this club. For me, personally, that's where I see him right now. Things change, context change all the time. Obviously, it always changes. But for me, he has to pick up a title in the next 3 years. That is this new contract through to 2027. If you're wondering how quickly I can make thumbnails, well, I've just managed to do it while talking there. So that's going to be the new thumbnail for the show while I was live. So that's sorted. But yeah, I think that when it comes to sitting here and talking about a manager earning new deals, Mikel Arteta has definitely earned it. We'll probably do a phone-in show on this at some point. We may even switch out tonight's preview show with a phone-in show about this, because it is obviously really, really big news. And I'm sure there's plenty of you that are going to want to discuss that as well. Right, shall we go to part 2 and tackle some of your questions? Yeah, we're going to do that right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show where we tackle your questions and more in the chat box. So without further ado, let's do that and get some of your thoughts. Amesy says, harsh, Tom. If City continue to be that juggernaut, hopefully the title will come very soon. I don't think it's harsh. He would have been at the club, Amesy, for 8 years at the end of this contract. 8 years at the end of this deal. And if Arsenal haven't lifted a Premier League title, haven't lifted a Champions League title after 8 years, that's big. That's a long time. A long time. And that's why I said either or. You know, I said the Premier League or the Champions League. I think you have to show some return on that investment in the next 3 years. For me personally, I don't think it's harsh to look at that. 8 years is a really long time and a lot of money that would have been invested. So that's kind of my benchmark for Arteta. You know, he had to, for me, get us back into the equation. That was what this contract was about when he signed it 2 years ago after we, nearly won the league. So this new contract has got to be about winning it. It has to be about winning it. Otherwise, what are we doing? What are we here for? You can't just say it's nearly there, it's nearly there, it's nearly there. This contract, it has to be there. Absolutely has to be there. James says, do you think Arteta will be more defensive with Jorginho and Partey and play the counter on the weekend? There was no press and cohesion when Odegaard took a knock versus Palace. Potentially. I'm really intrigued to see what happens, of course, but we may have our preview show for you tonight, which is going to be a really interesting preview show, I think, with obviously the context of this news regarding Arteta's deal. We probably will discuss it quite a bit on that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Mikel Arteta, I'm just changing the title of the video. Signs, agrees, I should put. Agrees new 3-year contract. Okay, there we go. Lovely stuff. Change the title. Let's go to David says, so if he does nothing for nearly 10 years, it'll be then time to let him go. I mean, I think at the end of that 3 years, if he's still not picked up a Premier League title or a Champions League title, you've probably learned by that stage. And of course, that's also alongside not regressing. Like, we can't go backwards. It's really worth pointing out. We cannot go backwards. That's also really important to point out. I think if he doesn't win in any of those big titles, then ultimately you probably learned by that point that he's taken us as far as he ultimately can. But, I don't want to get too bogged down in the whole, he needs to win this, he needs to win that, because I don't think that's what the contract signing should be about in primary. The contract in itself, I think it's indisputable that he's earned this new deal. This new deal has absolutely been earned, because Arsenal, we look and expect them to compete for the title again this season, even with all the challenges, of course, that we expect to face this year. At a very minimum, of course, will be finishing in the top 4. Should be absolutely no question marks about that. You can't just have his contract running down to zero. For those people that think, they would have waited until the end of the season to see where we finished and then given him a new deal, you can't. It doesn't work that way. You can't expect people to work under those kind of parameters, because it would make no sense. He's earned it. He's earned this new deal. It's as simple as that. So this is the deal that we were expecting. I always said to you, I thought it would be 3. I thought it would be 3 years, because that's usually how manager contracts tend to work at the top level. So yeah, let's wait and see. I think waiting until the end of the season would have been madness, and you just never would have seen that at a club the size of Arsenal, competing at the level of Arsenal. The irony is I think that the people that think that they should have waited to the end of the season are the same people that think Arsenal should be winning titles, should be winning leagues, Arsenal should be doing better. Well, the fact of the matter is that clubs that do those things don't allow their managers that get them to that level to have their contracts run down to zero before they extend them. They just don't. That's not how it happens. The only time those managers will run those contracts down to near zero will be the ones that are ultimately going to leave. And that's why I think Pep Guardiola's situation, of course, with his new deal, I would be beyond shocked if he signed a new deal at the end of the season. If Pep's going to stay, it'll be because, of course, he's decided to stay. And what this also does as well is it staves off that Manchester City presence, because Man City, without question, would have been intrigued by potentially Arteta replacing Pep Guardiola. And if Guardiola is going to leave at the end of this season, all the time that you didn't renew him, you put yourself in a position for a club like Man City, for a club like PSG, for a club like Barcelona, to court Arteta in many ways, to look at potentially speaking with Arteta. It creates uncertainty. You want stability with your team. There is absolutely zero argument to have waited until the end of the season with this, because all of the drawbacks, all of the negatives far outweigh, the reasons behind, obviously, wanting to sign him up to a new deal, wanting to renew him. Dara says, Tom, what do you believe our chances are of winning at the weekend, even with our current injuries? Great chances, Dara. Of course, we have fantastic chances. I put a tweet out the other day, and by the way, I'm liking this not tweeting thing. I'm going to be honest. I'm only tweeting out articles and videos at the moment. I'm not replying to tweets. I'm not engaging in debates. I'm not engaging in conversations on Twitter, because I just think it's a horrible place right now. And I'm enjoying it. It's after a day, my mental health has improved significantly. But I did put something out, which I'll read to you. In 2022, Arsenal went to Tottenham knowing that they had to win or draw to qualify for the Champions League. The team that day was Ramsdale, Cedric, Holding, Gabriel, Tomiyasu, El Neni, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and Nketiah. Without Odegaard, Rice, Marino, Tomiyasu, and potentially Jesus and Calafiori, Arsenal can still put a team out on Sunday that is of the following: Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, Partey, Jorginho, Havertz, Saka, Trossard, and Martinelli or Sterling. So when you look at the difference between two teams in the space of just over 2 years, despite injuries and at a really high-pressure moment, it shows you how this team has improved. It shows you the recruitment of this team over the last 2 years. That is really, really important to highlight, and shows you what we've done in the market over the last 2 years. Grant says it's not just about having that one season where you win a big trophy, then drop off. It's about elevating the club to a level where you compete for them every year. Of course, we still need to lift them too. And this is a great point from Grant. Like, Arsenal under Arteta have positioned themselves to be able, have positioned themselves to put them into that place to be able to do that. Under Arteta, Arsenal have put themselves into a position where we are now competitors at a table that we previously simply just weren't having a seat at. We did not have a seat at this table. And some people would happily or want to risk that and chuck it out to find somebody else. The fact of the matter is that there is no guarantees with that. And a better track towards where Arsenal want to go is that Arteta train. If you're not on the Arteta train right now, I don't think personally you ever will be. And if you're jumping on once he's won a title, that's too late. So I think we're in a great place. I think we're doing the right things. I think this is the right decision. And it's now on Arteta to deliver in these next 3 years. Magambo says Ferguson was bigger when Wenger came in. This Pep argument can't work over a decade. If potential doesn't transform into desired results, something is lacking either in managers or with the players. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by the Ferguson-Wenger stuff, Magambo, to be honest. The Pep argument, I'm not sure what Pep argument you're talking about. Ultimately, this season, Arsenal should be picking up a trophy, in my opinion. We absolutely need to be picking up a trophy, in my opinion, this season. Another year without one would be a big disappointment. But this new contract is all about, obviously, the next 3 years of picking up that Premier League or that Champions League trophy. Mr. Thuggis is pretty much what we want. What's happened with Liverpool, they were lingering around 5th and 6th places. Klopp comes to him, elevates them back to being a top team on a long-term project as well. The issue, obviously, that Arsenal have got in comparison to Klopp is that Arsenal have risen with both of Liverpool and Manchester City present in, title challenging capacities. So that's the difference between Arteta and Klopp, is that it's harder for Arteta, it's harder for Arsenal because it's even tougher for Arsenal to get to where they need to go. Elliot says, hey, Tom, do you think that we can sign the big fish either up front or on the wing within those next 3 years, bringing us even closer? Absolutely, Elliot. And that's another thing, is that next summer has got to be about adding that marquee figure. The window wasn't there for us this year to be able to do that. Next summer in 25, as I have said, and those that are long-time listeners of the show will know I've said time after time that 2025 is seen as a huge year for Arsenal. It could be hopefully one where we win a league title this season. But the summer in particular is seen as a massive, I think, choke point in the transfer market for Arsenal to go out and add some very, very big players to the squad. And I'll certainly be expecting that. So Nicholas says, I absolutely think that we can keep a clean sheet against Spurs when our defence is at its best. Nobody can score on us, even City, and we've proved it for me. The question is, can we score? Ken says, would it count enough if Arteta wins the Club World Cup? I mean, you have to win the Champions. Oh, no, you don't. Potentially not anymore, but no, Ken, it wouldn't. The Club World Cup remains and will remain for quite some time. I think a bit of a question mark trophy, even with the expansion. Matthias says, well, the timing is good next week. We have to tie down Saliba, Saka, Odegaard. Basically, all our good players have to extend their contracts, and we do this together. Of course, I think 2027 is when Saliba's deal runs out, or I think it's when Saliba's deal runs out, or it's the year after it runs out. Saka and Odegaard's, I think, do in 2027. Let me just check. Arsenal contracts expiring. Arsenal contracts. So 2027, Saliba, Gabriel, both 2027. 2026, you've got Trossard, Zinchenko, Tierney, Tomiyasu. I think Tomiyasu might have an option in that one. Jesus is 27. Saka is 27. Martinelli's 27. So, yeah, it coincides a lot. So there'll be a lot of contract discussions over these next 3 years. But those players know that in the length of these contracts, Arteta is going to be at the club. It's going to be at the club. AFC Don says, does the Community Shield count as success? Not really for me, no. I mean, it's all right. It's a nice day out, but no, it's not a trophy I would reference in any kind of debate or argument about those trophies. Certainly, I wouldn't be looking to do that. Wale says, domestic trophies or not, if he doesn't win the league or the Champions League, then it's not good enough. We won domestic trophies before him. It's always that kind of level of, I think some people are so dismissive of the FA Cup in particular. I mean, I have my arguments about the League Cup. I think it's been sullied as a competition. But the FA Cup is a major trophy and should always be respected as the greatest club competition, tournament-wise, knockout tournament in the world, domestically. So, yeah, without question. Answers, Tom, are you not worried that if we don't win the league, the likes of Saliba and Saka could move on? Not really. Not at the moment. Not this season. Maybe, 3 years down the line. But if it's 3 years down the line, then I think a lot of change will happen. So, no, I'm not thinking about that at all. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way when speaking to them. That's not the feeling I get when speaking to them. We're hearing from them. They're very much Arsenal-driven, Arsenal-focused. And I don't think at the moment any of them thinking about leaving. But you can never rule out entirely. And when you've got clubs like Real Madrid that will be sniffing around those players, without question, there's going to be interest. And ultimately, when you're at the top table and you've got the top players, the top teams want to buy them. That's a reality of being one of the best teams. That's a reality of being where we are. Oki says the FA Cup won't save Arteta's job. From people like Oki, of course, it's worth pointing out. I think that Arsenal and the way they view things is different, of course, the way that we view things. Oki says he could win the next 3, and I would still say goodbye to Arteta if he doesn't win a Champions League or a Premier League trophy. I I think from an Arsenal perspective, I think they would still probably keep him. That's where I think where opinions will start to diverge a lot more, maybe from where the club sees things. And also, you have to think about what Arteta's going to want to do. If Arteta doesn't win a league or a Champions League in the next 3 years, is he going to be looking at it as, well, I don't think I can do it with Arsenal. I don't think Arsenal are good enough to do it with. Do I need to go somewhere else to do that? Is a Real Madrid going to come in for him? Is a Barcelona going to come for him? Is a PSG? Is a Bayern Munich? Who knows? Going to come in for Arteta, and he thinks that he's not been able to do it with the players that he's got, with the backing that he's had. He might want to move on. So it might even be that, Oki and people like Oki's view here are saying that I'd personally move on for him. He might take the choice out of your hands. He might decide, if we've not won a league in the next 2-3 years, that he thinks that it's not on him and it's on the backing, the club, the players, and he thinks instead he needs to move somewhere else. So it may be taken out of your hands, Oki. It may be him thinking he's too, maybe thinking that he needs to move to somewhere else to do that. So it's not just on us. Morgan says, hi, Tom. Great on the new Arteta news. I'm away in Denver and I'm still pushing the likes on my NordVPN. Don't forget to tell people about the Nord file transfer, which is seamless, even with massive files. Morgan's doing my work here. Nord is doing the business with Morgan. I might as well tell you at this very moment, of course. I will take this opportunity here to tell you, as Morgan has helped me, to make sure if you go down to the description, you can check out the link and go to nordvpn.com to get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year plan. And I recommend that you do that because, of course, you can change your geolocation seamlessly on your laptop, on your phone, or indeed on your tablet as well. As well as NordVPN, of course, Football Prizes are helping us out at the moment. And you can go down to the link description, go to Football Prizes and look at what the greatest offerings are to win some fantastic Arsenal-related deals. But yes, that's nordvpn.com/Gooner to go to Nord's. Football Prizes over there as well are 2 big supporters of the channel. Also, thank you, Morgie, for your diversion there. It was helpful. Grant says, really hope Sterling gets a good run out on Sunday. He's looking sharp. I can see him tearing it up for Spurs. Philip says, Arteta will put his own hands up, if he doesn't succeed, just as he did when he ended his playing days. He will never blame the club. DDJF says, this is a screen to divert away from the failure of the transfer window. Look at the timing. I think the timing of the Arteta deal is actually more to do with the games we've got coming up than the transfer window. The transfer window is been and gone. We're nearly a fortnight from the transfer window. They could have announced it, literally a few days after the window closed. We're nearly a fortnight after that. I think you look at the run of fixtures we've got. Spurs away, Man City away, the Champions League starting again. The timing for me is more to do with that. I don't think it's anything to do with the transfer window. I think it's all to do with the games and the momentum that we're trying to build into these next fixtures. Jay Collins says, who has a stronger defence, Nord or Arsenal? It's a big debate, Jay, and I think the fact there's even a debate tells you all that you need to know. Dara says, Tom, would you prefer back-to-back Premier League winners' medals or a Champions League? Back-to-back Premier League winners' medals. Absolutely, 100%. Of course, I'd love the Champions League. Back-to-back Premier League titles, undisputed champions, 100%. And he says, I mean, that's something that, the Arsenal winning back-to-back league titles. Think about the last time that happened. You're going back to your 30s, for the last time Arsenal won back-to-back titles, if my memory serves me well enough. So, yeah, the idea of Arsenal picking up a league title back-to-back, 100%, I'm taking that. And he says, Arteta cleaned the club from top to bottom and brought most fans with him. However, his success is closely linked to what the Cronkies allow him to spend. The whole Cronky spending thing has seemingly come back in its kind of heavy weight in the last couple of months, I think, because of the transfer window, which is, I get why it's come back, but I do think that it's very easily explained as to why the spending was what it was in the summer. And I think obviously you might see some of those reasons next summer when Arsenal are a lot more free in terms of their spending, a lot more free, and hopefully with a better market as well. Mark says, I think the key to our success defensively on Sunday is to contain Kulusevski. Timber can help. He gets from that left wing is critical. For me, that means Martinelli as well. What are your thoughts? I think that's definitely a fair point, Mark. I think that the left-hand side for us and their right-hand side is key, but I think their left-hand side is going to be a threat, obviously, too. But I don't think Solanke may be fit. We don't know quite yet if he's going to be ready. And, of course, you've got Brennan Johnson. you've got some of their other attackers that are going to be obviously a threat. No Richarlison, we don't expect. But I'd rather be playing against this team than against a team that beat us 3-0 a couple of seasons ago. That's for sure. Anyway, I'm going to bring us to a close there. We'll have more conversation about Arteta's brand new deal this afternoon in a preview show ahead of the weekend, ahead of the North London derby. There'll be derby chat. There'll be Arteta chat. So make sure you tune in 5 o'clock UK time tonight. That will be. Really looking forward to it, and looking forward to this weekend. Of course, there will be a show with you tomorrow morning, bright and early 8 a.m. with more fallout and news from this. And probably, if David Ornstein's dropping that bomb, hopefully we get an announcement on this very soon indeed. Right, let's finish things up. Do drop a like, subscribe if you're new. Please do go over to yesterday's show as well and drop a like too, because of course we were very, very close to hitting 1,000 likes, and we weren't quite there, and we need to make sure we hit it today. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy, respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.